Today on Love and Life's Journey DIY, we are going to be making some incredible fall decor using items from Dollar Tree. And be sure to stay tuned till the end because I have a bonus DIY for you as well. I'm so excited to share this first project with you. This is an adorable little wagon that's perfect for fall, but honestly, you could use this year-round for any season. So let me show you how to make it. For this project, I will be using 4 of the paper towel holders from Dollar Tree. I'll also be using these 2 pallet signs that I picked up from Family Dollar. If you have Dollar Tree Plus, they may have these signs as well. These were $3 each, but Family Dollar and Dollar Tree are owned by the same company, so be sure you check both stores. I'll also be using this wire paper tray as well as a rectangular sign board. This is just one that I had in my stash that I'll be using. I also had this 1x2 piece of wood in my stash. I think it's about 9 inches long or so. It doesn't have to be exact. And then I'll also be using some of these black zip ties from Dollar Tree. I also picked up 3 packages of the 5-gallon paint stir sticks from Walmart. These are the larger ones. There's 3 to a package, and we will be using all 9 stir sticks. And for paint, I'm going to be using a black spray paint and this brown color called Nutmeg, which is perfect for painting things that you want to look more wood colored. I will be using my Stanley staple gun. I love this tool, and all my favorite crafting tools are linked below. But if you don't have this, you can use a strong bonding glue such as E6000, and then you'll need some wood glue as well. To start out, I'm going to be removing the tags from my paper tray and also the labels off of my sign board. If the labels don't want to come off easily, I do recommend using a heat tool or blow dryer to help get those off. We don't want to tear this because we do want a nice smooth surface. Once I have the labels off, I am going to measure the width of my paper tray, and then I'm going to cut my sign board down so that it will fit down inside my paper tray. If you are a regular subscriber, thank you so much for coming back and watching this video. If you are new to my channel, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. My name is Chantel, and I love to do Dollar Tree DIYs and DIYs on a budget. So if you enjoy those types of things, make sure that you're subscribed and have your notifications set so that you won't miss any of my future projects coming up. So I'm just using a straight edge and a razor knife to cut my sign board down. These cut pretty well. You have to go over them a few times, and then you'll be able to just kind of bend it and cut through to get a nice straight edge. And now that I have the width correct, I'm going to mark the length, and I'm going to cut the sign board down that direction as well. And I'm making sure to cut off the end that has the holes where the hanger was so that I don't have to worry about filling any holes. Once my sign is cut down to size, I'm just going to take some sandpaper and run over the edges just to clean those up. Then I'm going to take my sign board and my wire paper tray, and I am going to give them both a coat of the Nutmeg spray paint. I'm also going to take my 4 paper towel holders, and I'm going to spray them with the black spray paint. And with this sign, I did not worry about sanding off the glitter or the design on the one side of the sign because it's not really going to matter on this project, so I didn't figure I needed to spend the time and energy to do that. But I am going to spray both sides of the sign and then also the wire basket. Mostly just the sides of it is what needs to get sprayed because that's really all that's going to show. And I did use a couple of coats of the spray paint on all of these pieces just to make sure that they were covered well. So while all of those pieces are drying, I am going to prep all of my wood pieces. So I'm going to start by removing labels and hangers from my wood signs. And if you aren't able to find these particular signs, you could make your own using more of those wood paint stir sticks, but it just is so easy if you can find these pre-made pallet signs. And the measurements on these signs that I got are 14 inches by 7¼ inches. I want these to have kind of a stained look, but I don't love using stain. I think it's messy and hard to control, especially if you want a light colored stain. So I'm going to be using just some brown craft paint, and I'm going to water it down. And I'm going to kind of test it on the back of the sign to make sure I like the looks of it. And then I'm going to paint all of my wood pieces in this same color. I prefer doing it this way because it's just so much easier to clean up. I think it's easier to work with as far as getting the color that you want. It will dry lighter, and so I usually have to go over it a couple of times, but I just really prefer working with the paint as opposed to the stain. But if you like stain, definitely you can do that, or you could also paint this. And I am making sure to paint both the front and the back and all of the edges and the sides of this pallet sign because it's all going to show. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the second pallet sign. I also want all of my paint stir sticks to be this same color, so I am going to be painting all 9 of them with this same paint. But as you can see, I'm going over them with a little bit of sandpaper where they have some splinters and rough edges. And I will be cutting these down. I won't be using the full length. So I went ahead and left them long before painting them. And that way I kind of have a handle to hold on to. However, I will be painting one of the stir sticks the full length because that's going to be the handle of my wagon. And then I'm just going to paint them all, both on the front and the back and on all of the edges. Once all of the pieces that I spray painted are dry, I did go over them with some matte finish sealer, a couple of coats of that just to make sure that the spray paint was sealed and that it wasn't going to chip off. And now I'm going to be assembling my wheels and axles for my wagon. So to do this, I am going to take 2 of the paper towel holders and I am going to place them together, just one on top of the other, so that I have the base of each paper towel holder on one on each side, and then I just have the long part sitting on top of each other. And then I'm going to zip tie those together, one on each end. And then I'll just snip off the extra part of the zip tie. And repeat that with the other 2 paper towel holders. Next, I'm going to attach my wire paper tray to the axles of my wagon, and I am lining up the front of the paper tray with the front edge of the wheels that are going to be the front of the wagon. and I am going to just use some zip ties to attach the tray to the axles. And I did center my tray in between the wheels, and there is about 1.5 inches between the paper tray and the wheels of the wagon. And this is good because this is where the wood sides of the wagon are going to go. When putting the zip ties on, you do want to make sure that the little clip part is facing down so that it's underneath the wagon, because we will be placing our signboard inside the wagon and we want it to sit flat. So just make sure that those zip ties are facing down, and then once those are all attached, then just make sure they're tight and trim off the extra part of the zip tie. The great thing about these particular pallet signs is that the vertical pieces of wood that stick down below the bottom a little bit will push down perfectly inside those paper towel holders, and this makes it great for assembling this and making it fit together really sturdily. Sturdily, is that a word? It sounds really funny, but I actually paused here, looked it up, and yes, sturdily is a word. So once I have one of the pallet signs placed on the wagon, then I am going to use my staple gun to attach this. And you'll notice that the wire basket sits right up against the wood on those vertical pieces, both in the front and the back. And so that's where I'm going to be stapling it. Now, if you don't have a staple gun, this is where you would use like your E6000 and some clamps, and you would put some glue there and glue the wire basket to the wood pallet sign and clamp it and let it dry thoroughly. But since I always say I am an impatient crafter, I like things that are fast, and so I'm going to use my staple gun. And when stapling this, I did put my little 1x2 piece of wood underneath where I was stapling. This just gave it more support so that I could press down harder and get a nice tight staple. And then I'm going to repeat the exact same thing with the other pallet sign. Now I'm going to be using those paint stir sticks to build the front and back sides of my wagon. So I'm just holding one up and measuring how long it needs to be. I'm just going to mark that with a pencil, and then I'm going to cut down all of the paint stir sticks except for the one that I painted the full length that I'm saving to use as the handle of my wagon. So I'm going to use my miter box and saw to cut down these stir sticks, and instead of cutting them one at a time, I am going to stack them four together at a time. And to hold them in place, I am going to put 1 or 2 zip ties around them just to hold them together, and then I will saw them off on the mark that I made, and then just remove the zip tie. And this makes it really easy to hold them all together so that you get a nice cut right where you need it to be. And again, all of my favorite crafting tools are linked below, like this miter box and saw. But one of my very favorite things is this little USB rechargeable handheld vacuum. This little thing is amazing for cleaning up glitter and sawdust and all of the crafty things, and it is not very expensive, so do yourself a favor, put it on your wish list for someone to get you as a gift, because you will love it. Or buy it as a gift for yourself. Okay, so now that we have those 8 stir sticks cut down to size, I am going to use some wood glue and a little bit of hot glue to attach these. And I'm going to be putting one flush with the top of my pallet signs and then another flush with the bottom, and then I'm going to just space the other two appropriately in between. And then I will repeat this same step on the other end of the wagon to close in the box. So essentially we have created a wooden crate to put on top of these paper towel holders. So if you had a wooden crate that was about this size, you could use it and save a whole lot of steps. Next, I'm going to take that little piece of 1x2 and I am going to cut the end at an angle. And so I'm going to tip it up on its side, and then I first cut it at a 45-degree angle, but decided that this was too much of an angle. And so I did end up going back and cutting it at a lesser angle, which was 22.5 degrees on this miter box. Then I'm going to sand off any rough edges, and then I'm going to paint this with the same watered down brown paint that I used for all of the other wood pieces. Next, I'm going to position this piece of wood on the bottom of the wagon at the front, and I'm putting it so that the angle that I just cut on that is at the front of the wagon, and this is so that my handle is going to slant backwards and lean up against the front of the wagon, as you see here. Now that I have an idea of where this needs to be placed, I am going to flip my wagon over, and I'm going to use quite a few zip ties to zip tie this to the bottom of the wire paper tray so that it is nice and sturdy. And once I'm happy with that, I'll just cut off the ends of the zip ties. And you can see here that I crisscrossed my zip ties over the wires on the basket, and this held my wood in place and kept it from sliding back and forth. Next, I'm going to lay my sign board down in the wire basket, and I did not attach this, I just laid it in there. Then I'm going to use some wood glue and a little bit of hot glue to attach my last paint stir stick onto that piece of wood that we just attached to the bottom of the wagon, and this is going to be the handle of my wagon. I did also add a little bit of the wood glue where the handle is up against the top of the side of the wagon there, just to give it a little bit more stability. I decided I wanted to add a cross piece to my wagon handle, so I cut a couple of pieces of the paint stir stick scraps that we had left, and I'm going to glue one on each side of the long handle that we just attached to the wagon. And then I just put some burlap in the bottom of my wagon and filled it up with various pumpkins and gourds and the corn that you buy from Dollar Tree. And I just love how this turned out. It is so perfect for fall.
before we get into the next DIY, I did want to let you know that because this is my first video of the month, I will be giving away my Dollar Tree mystery box. And if you don't know what that is, I just decided a couple of years ago to put together a box of those hard to find Dollar Tree items, those things that maybe you're seeing on our videos that you're not able to find in your stores, and just give it away randomly to one of you. And so I've been doing that every month for a couple of years. I can't believe it's been that long, but I am still going to be doing that. This is the first video of September, so be sure to leave your comment below and like this video so that you can be entered in to win this month's mystery box. And don't forget to stay tuned till the end of the video when I will announce who won last month's box.
So I stopped by Family Dollar this week because we don't have Dollar Tree Plus in our area, but Family Dollar carries a lot of the same things because they are owned by the same companies. So I went in there to see what they had for fall, and in their Halloween section, I actually found this stacking pumpkin sign. It says trick or treat on it. And I don't decorate for Halloween, but I knew that I could make this into a really cute fall decoration, and it was just $5. And to make over this sign, all I'm going to be using is some paint. So I am using an off-white chalk paint. This is Chiffon Cream by Rust-Oleum. I get this at Walmart. And then also from Walmart, I picked up some Waverly chalk paint in an orange and a sage green color. The word trick on this sign is three-dimensional, and so I am going to be removing that, and I'm using my heat tool to warm up the glue and loosen it up so that I can get this off a little more easily. It is glued on, and then there are also some little nails that are holding it on as well. I found it was really helpful to have this little metal spatula. This is a old Cricut tool that I have, but I was able just to slide it underneath the word as the glue heated up, and then I could use that to pry up the word. Then I just took some pliers and pulled out those little nails. The black parts of this sign were pretty slick, so I decided to go over it with a sanding block, and this helped to fill in the little holes from those nails as well, so I didn't even have to use any wood filler. And then I just used my little handheld vacuum and a damp cloth to clean up the sign after I sanded it. And I did remove the ribbon and the hanger off of the sign as well. I decided to paint the bottom pumpkin with the sage green color. You can do these in any colors that you choose, but I decided I wanted the largest pumpkin to be this pretty green. Next, I'll paint the center pumpkin with the chiffon cream or the off-white paint. And then I'm going to use the orange paint on the top pumpkin. However, I am going to add a little bit of the chiffon cream paint to that orange just to soften it a little bit. I also decided to use a little bit of brown paint to paint the stem on that top pumpkin. After putting 2 coats of paint on each pumpkin and letting those dry, now I am going to add some shading. So I am going to be using the chiffon cream paint for my green pumpkin, and I'm going to be using this large flat brush. So these brushes are really good for shading, and this is what I call floating. And so you get your brush wet and then you dab it on your paper towel a little bit. Then you get a little bit of paint on just one corner of your brush. Then I like to run it on a paper or a palette to get a little bit of the extra paint off. And then I'm going to run my paintbrush along the edge of the project so that the edge of the paintbrush that has the paint on it is right up against the edge of the paintbrush, and then the paint gets less and less as it moves towards the center of the project. So it's kind of adding an outline or a highlight to the edge of the project. And it's actually looking a little bit more dramatic here than it actually is because the water from my brush is reflecting on the project. And as that dries, it will be more of a subtle outline, and you'll see that here in a minute. Now, to add a little bit of dimension to my pumpkins, I am going to do the same thing with my brush as far as loading the paint onto the corner. Take a little bit of the excess paint off on my palette, and then I am going to make a couple of curved lines, kind of like you would have on a real pumpkin, and that will give this a little bit more dimension. And again, I'm not putting that much paint on this. You're seeing mostly the water reflecting back. And so when I tilt this up here in a second, you'll see how subtle this actually is and how soft it really looks. And that's really how it's going to look when it dries. So now I'm going to use the green paint to do basically the same thing on the white pumpkin. I'm just going to go around the edges and then add that detail in the center of the pumpkin as well. And then for my orange pumpkin, I'm going to be using the same brown paint that I used to paint my stem. And I know that if you haven't done this floating or shading before, it can be a little bit intimidating, but I would just encourage you to practice on just a scrap piece of wood or a palette and just play around with it. It really is an easy way to add dimension and make your project really pop. I also took just a little bit of the chiffon cream paint and added a little bit of highlights to that stem as well. Then to finish this off, I'm just going to take a couple of strands of raffia and wrap it around the stem a couple times and tie a bow.
Okay, so now that I have finished this pumpkin sign, I really love how this turned out. But while I was doing this, when I turned it around, it was screaming snowman at me. And so I am going to turn the back side of this sign into a snowman. We're going to make this into a reversible sign so that it can be used all through fall and into winter.
The shape of this sign is just perfect for a snowman, so I am going to remove that raffia bow from the top that I put on there for the pumpkin side. We will be adding that back in, but for now, while I'm painting the snowman, we're just going to set that aside. I'm going to use my chiffon cream that I used on the pumpkin side. If you want this to be more of a white, you could use more of a true white, but since I like the farmhouse, I tend to go for the off-white a little bit more. So I'm going to paint the whole backside of the pumpkin sign in this chiffon cream color, and I did do a couple of coats just to make sure that it was covered well. I did let my paint dry in between the two coats, and full disclosure, I do use my heat tool to help my paint dry because, as I've said before, I'm an impatient crafter. Once the paint is dry, I'm going to use a pencil and I'm going to sketch out my snowman. I'm going to make him have a stocking cap, then I'm going to draw his face, a scarf, and some little buttons down the front. And I found it helpful just to pull up some reference pictures on Google and get some ideas of how I wanted this little guy to look, and then I just sketched out my own design. So feel free to copy my design or make up your own. I decided to go with kind of a blue color theme here just for winter. I didn't really want to make him specific to Christmas. I wanted it to be something I could leave out after Christmas if I wanted to. So I am using a lighter blue and a darker blue for the main colors. And to make it more interesting, instead of painting his scarf all one color, I decided to make it a striped scarf. So that's why you see these sections here that I'm doing. The pencil markings aren't showing up real well on the video, but I am following my pattern that I sketched out. So once I have that first coat of the light blue on, I'm going to go in and do my first coat of my darker blue for his hat brim. And then, is it called a brim on a stocking cap? I don't know, but I'm going to call it a brim. And then I'm going to paint the other stripes on his scarf with the dark blue as well. Next, I'm going to take some black paint and I am going to paint his eyes. And if it is easier for you to use a Sharpie marker to do his face, I know that that can be a lot easier. I'm really comfortable with the paintbrush, so I tend to like to do it all with the paintbrush. But as you see here, you can also draw on like his mouth with a Sharpie. And then I'm also going to paint his 3 little buttons down the front using the black paint. Then using my orange chalk paint, I am going to paint a cute little carrot nose on him. And you can make a long skinny nose, you can make a short fat nose, you can point it in any direction. It's just really kind of whatever you want your snowman's face to look like. And now that his hat and scarf are dry, I'm going to go in with a second coat on the mostly the light blue and then just touch up the dark blue. And once that has had a chance to dry, I'm going to go in with my dark blue paint and do a little dry brushing on his hat to make some lines. And then I'm going to use a smaller flat brush, and just like I did on the pumpkin side of the sign, I'm going to do some floating or shading all around the sections of his scarf. So I'm going to use the dark blue on the light blue sections, and I'll use the light blue on the dark blue sections. And this just highlights it and gives it that dimension that I'm looking for. Next, I'm going to take a really small liner brush and some white paint, and I'm going to paint some little snowflakes on the brim of his hat. And these, I'm just making little asterisks. I'm not adding a lot of detail, but I just think this is really cute. And now let's add a little dimension to his carrot nose just by doing a little shading around it and drawing a couple of lines with the shading down from the top of his nose, kind of in a curved line. Then I'll also just add a little bit of shading to those buttons on the front. Then I'm going to add a little sparkle to his eyes just by dipping the back of my paintbrush in my white paint and putting a little dot in each eye. Then to break up the white and just kind of outline him a little bit, I'm going to float around the whole body of the snowman using some black paint. I want to add some three-dimensional elements to this, so I'm going to use this twine from Dollar Tree, and I am going to make some fringes for his scarf. To do this, I am just making some tassels, so I'm wrapping the twine around 2 fingers about 5 times, and then I am going to use another piece of twine to kind of tie it off around the top, and then I'll cut the loops so that I have just a little tassel, and I'm going to make 5 of these. And then I'm going to attach these to the bottom of his scarf. I'm using hot glue for this. If you are going to put this outside in cold weather, I would recommend using a glue that doesn't get brittle in the cold. Sometimes hot glue isn't the best option for outside and extreme temperatures. And I decided to add a few pom-poms to the top of his hat where that pumpkin stem is. But first I'm going to add that raffia back on, and then I'm going to hot glue it on the pumpkin side to kind of hold it down so that it doesn't really show too much from the snowman side. Then we're going to place the little pom-poms on the top over that to hide it. And I squeezed my little pom-poms together really tight, added some glue in the middle so that they wouldn't show from the pumpkin side. And isn't he just so cute? I'm so happy I decided to paint the back of my pumpkin sign to be this adorable little snowman. And now I have 2 cute decorations for 2 different seasons, and I only have to store one thing. So as promised, I do want to announce the winner of last month's Dollar Tree mystery box giveaway, and that is Debbie Lerma. Congratulations, Debbie. I will be sending a box of Dollar Tree goodies your way. And remember, for the rest of you, if you want to enter to win this month's box, be sure to like this video and leave a comment below. And I will announce the winner of that box in my first video of October.
Well, I hope you enjoyed these fall and winter DIYs. I had so much fun making them. And so if you did enjoy this video, please hit that like button. It helps my video get out to other people. And if you haven't subscribed yet, if you would hit that subscribe button, I would really appreciate it. It doesn't cost you anything, but it really helps me out. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a blessed day.